Gosh, Alan here. I'm hiding in a secret room, infiltrating the lair of one of the gatekeepers. But I wanted to welcome our newest greatcoat, Ev, the King's Chef, hurler of books to the Knights of Alexandria. Shh, you never saw me.
Hi guys, it's Alan and welcome back to the Library of Alexandria. So today, guys, I will be reviewing Boosh! Stormfront, the first book in the Dresden Files series. There's a stormfront coming, as Billy Joel would say. Now, astute viewers will notice that this is not, in fact, the horrible narrow paperback that I once had. If on my you watched my TBR video, you saw that I did indeed split this spine just by showing you how terrible it was. I don't like this size paperback, guys. Y'all know that. And so I figured if I'm going to read this whole series, I'm going to have 17 books, or 20, I guess, when it's done. I don't want 17 of these, so I caved. I don't usually buy things for the cover, and I don't usually buy UK versions of stuff. But this, just the ease of opening, the floppiness, just the size, this is so much better, infinitely better than the other one. So this one has supplanted this one. So, this is my introduction into the Dresden Files. Now, I had, many years ago, as I said before, I had read Stormfront and just didn't continue on with the series before. And after reading this, I figured out why that was. But before I get into that, before starting reading this, I also read, I looked up chronologically, like the short stories and graphic novels. And so I read Restoration of Faith, which was his first short story. And then I read Welcome to the Jungle, the graphic novel that takes place before Stormfront. And, I mean, they were fine. I mean, the short story was, I mean, he wrote it in college. So, I mean, it was fine. We do see that he reuses some jokes from the short story in Stormfront, and I mean, that's fine. The short story wasn't really meant to be published, from what I understand. And Welcome to the Jungle. Welcome to the Jungle was fine. It was really interesting. It was well drawn. Like, it was, I mean, it was pretty good. I actually really liked Welcome to the Jungle, and you got to see kind of what the magic does and everything else. So, Stormfront. Harry Dresden is a private eye in the city of Chicago. The one thing is that he's a wizard, and he's like outwardly a wizard. Like, people know he's a wizard. Like, his ad says, I'm a wizard. I don't make love potions, even though he does. And I'm a wizard, and I'll do wizard stuff for you. Like, I'll figure out mystical mysteries. And that by itself is a really cool premise, because it does set you up that even if this was just a Monster of the Week series, I mean, there's some longevity in that. He's a private investigator that investigates supernatural stuff. Like, you can get a lot of play out of just that concept. Now, I have heard that it's more than just that. It becomes more than just that. But this first book really feels like it's kind of establishing some of the kind of things that we're going to expect to see from Dresden novels. It's setting up what Harry can do, the people in his world, and from everything I hear, Butcher builds on this with every subsequent novel. But this first one is very, very small and very, very contained. And I don't really have a ton to say about it. I mean, it was fine. It was fine. Stormfront was fine. And a lot of the stuff I'm going to talk about now is really why I didn't continue before, but I did not have all the booktube community then. I didn't have a bunch of people who are my good friends who I trust, whose opinions I trust, telling me to continue the series. I didn't have Leslie from the Nerdy Narrative telling me to hurry through the series so I can read how good the most recent book, Battleground, is. So since I trust these people, Leslie and others, like, I'm definitely going to continue with the series, even though this book was, it was just fine. Now, I would like this book less if I didn't already love the noir, kind of black and white PI genre as it is. I was in like a noir play like outside of, when I was out of college. And I also really love the Raymond Chandler, Philip Marlowe books. They very much took their inspiration from these noir detective novels, up to and including all of kind of the maybe outdated tropes, things that were just like, a little bit weird nowadays, but fit within that genre. It's just, I mean, it's the standard tropes of that genre, which is why I can really forgive a lot of it, because it's what I expect to see from one of these pulpy noir fiction novels. Now, it also reminds me of longtime video game players. If you played Max Payne or Max Payne 2, oh my gosh, I kept hearing Max in my head when Harry was talking.
The rusty door led to an abandoned part of the station, closed off since the early 40s. Something big was going down in Roscoe Street. Maybe that's why Alex had wanted to meet me here. Maybe not. One way or the other, I was gonna find out. We come to you now live from the crime scene.
Who is this?
Right back at you.
This is Deputy Chief Jim Bravura from the NYPD. You are to cease your criminal activities and surrender immediately.
Sure thing, Jim. Me and the boys have been talking and everyone's real sorry. They'll never do it again.
It has that kind of like really corny humor, overblown narration at times where you're in Harry's head just like you're in Max's head, and you can definitely see how it could be paneled like a comic. I read the graphic novel and it lends itself well to that format. So if you've ever played Max Payne, it totally reminds me of Max Payne, and I loved Max Payne 1 and 2. 3 was all right, but it got kind of away from the ridiculous like similes of Max Payne, and there is no bullet time. So with those things in mind, the stuff that bothered me didn't really bother me all that much because I love that genre to start with. So the premise of Stormfront is that two people have been murdered in flagrante delicto, and it doesn't look like a normal crime. Their hearts have been like exploded out of their bodies, and he's called in by the head of special investigations, Karen Murphy, who is, as you know, in all of the PI shows. Just look at the early 2000s, the boom of like investigation dramas where it's someone outside the police who's always helping the police. All of them. You see Psych, which is the best of them. I mean, come on, son.
This is my partner. Bad news, Marvin Barnes. I have bad news.
And The Mentalist, which Psych mocks, and I mean, even House, which isn't an investigation, isn't a crime investigation show, but a medical investigation show. Just the boom of those. That's what this is. Standard trope. She is the police liaison who kind of is mean to him, but knows that she needs him. She has a partner. We've always got the partner who thinks that the other guy is a hack and shouldn't be there. That's there as well with frickin' Carmichael. And so this sets up, it's all very familiar. It's all very comforting. And Harry has to kind of get to the bottom of how these people died. He's convinced that it's some kind of magic thing, and he has to investigate. And that's really the premise. And each chapter unfolds while he's investigating. Things happen just like happen in all kind of murder mysteries where he's in danger. Oh no, who's putting me in danger type thing. Oh, we have a lead. Where is that going? Is that a red herring or is that the thread we need to follow? Do these threads converge? And we see all of this stuff as we learn about Harry's kind of magic-filled Chicago. Because this is an urban fantasy. It is our real world, but there are supernatural elements. There is a vampire who runs kind of a brothel. We have a fairy named Toot Toot. I did not enjoy that, but Toot Toot really likes pizza. So anytime Harry needs to rely on Toot Toot's information, he's got to bring him a pizza. So there's weird stuff like that. There's also, the worst character is by far the guy who's supposed to be watching Harry to make sure he doesn't break any laws of magic. This guy's name is Morgan. He works for like the Council of Wizards, who's making sure that no wizards are using unauthorized magic. And guys, Morgan sucks. He is the most cliched character. You've seen him in every single book like this. His hatred of Harry, it's just so, like, no matter what Harry does, Harry's wrong, Harry's guilty, Harry's screwed up. Like, even where it's strange credulity. We're like, dude, Morgan, there's no way you can buy that. Like, you literally watched what just happened, and you're interpreting the events this way? Like, that's not even possible. It's not possible. He is the worst by far. Let me know in the comments if Morgan is in later books, because I sure hope not. The best side character, besides Murphy, she's mean, like, she's tough. I really like Murphy. We see her origins in the Restoration of Faith short story. But probably the most interesting side character is Johnny Marcone, or Marconi, however you want to pronounce it. And he's kind of the mob boss, and this is also super familiar. The mob boss that is a crook, but also kind of brings a sort of stability to the city. So this is like your Carmine Falcone from the Batman comics. He sucks and he's a horrible criminal, but it's better to have him than kind of to not have him, because if you don't, like, the criminal element just kind of erupts into chaos. So he's really interesting, and his ties to everything that's going on is just, he's one of the more interesting side characters. He also has a talking skull named Bob. I have never been a huge fan of fantasy creatures or like really like mystical things having like really non-mystical names, like a talking skull being named Bob. The worst example is the terrifying like Cerberus that's in Harry Potter 1 that I'm supposed to think is hilarious because it's named Fluffy. I don't like that at all. It's one of my least favorite things. It's like, oh, see how funny it is? It's named Fluffy, but it's super... No, it's Cerberus. It's Cerberus. He's a hellhound. Like, stop. Don't call it... Ugh, I don't like that at all. So, the fact that it's called Bob, I don't really like that because it's a freaking, like, magic skull and is like, you know, a spirit, and it's... just like toot toot, but at least that thing's a fairy. Whatever. Anyway, so some things I really liked about this book is I like the take on wizardry that we have. Harry's presence kind of screws up electronics, so he doesn't really have any like he doesn't really have a computer in his house or anything like that, because just the fact that he's a wizard that he can use and channel magic disrupts those really tiny electronic components of things. And so everywhere he goes, he kind of has to be careful that he doesn't like just mess up the electronics around him. I thought that was a really interesting kind of twist on it. I like the way that magic is used. Magic can be used by a wizard anytime, but it's more raw and less focused, more like, you know, all-encompassing. If you don't have their staff and blasting rod. The staff and the blasting rod, which is a smaller staff. That's how the wizards channel their magic. That's how they shape it and focus it. So, for example, without the staff, it's like a shotgun blast. But with the staff, you can like pinpoint rifle accuracy with your magic. And I really like that as well. I love a good mystery. This one isn't particularly complex. It isn't particularly difficult to figure it out. It relies a lot on contrivance, and this is one of the things that bothered me the most. Some of the stuff that happens is just kind of dumb, and if it didn't happen, the mystery would be solved like that. Much of the conflict is manufactured through contrivance, either through miscommunication, through purposely not revealing information that you have for dumb reasons that you're not going to tell. Willful, like, misinterpreting of events. And I just don't like that, because that doesn't really make a good mystery when it can be solved if people would just stop acting the way they're acting. So I did not like that at all. I have heard that the mysteries get more complexly plotted, that they're better as we go on, and I'm looking forward to that. But for this one, it didn't really do it for me. I thought the main mystery was kind of like, meh. Like when I found out, I'm like, oh, that's what's happening? Oh, I guess. Okay. Another thing I didn't really love, but again, is part of the genre, and I understand that Butcher wrote this book as a grad student. I'm fairly certain he wrote this as a grad student, or if not, like shortly afterwards. So he was a new author, and I get it. And I give new authors like a lot of leeway. I enjoyed this book. I did enjoy this book. Please understand. Like, it's a good example of this kind of fiction. But there's so many cliches in this. So many cliches in just the way Harry thinks. Like, he repeatedly says, "Believe you me." No one really says, "Believe you me." Like, nobody. I've never said or heard anybody say, "Believe you me." Do you know where I've heard people say, "Believe you me"? Detective novels, mystery novels, or television shows. I've never heard a real person say, "Believe you me." That's not, I cringed every time I saw it. He says a lot of, "You know as well as I do that I can't do this." That's one of the worst ways to convey information. like, if you know that they know, you don't have, like, it's so clear that you're trying to let us know, you're trying to, like, give us some exposition, which I get, but you know as well as I do that you can't do that or else this happens. Okay, if I know that, why are you refreshing me? I don't really need that. And the jokes are bad. He reuses some of the jokes from Restoration of Faith, as I said. Harry makes jokes all the time, and they're not very good. And I don't think they're meant to be bad. I think they're meant to be funny, and so they're not great. Again, I hear the humor improves as it goes, and that's fine. New author, I get it. But some of the stuff he says, it's just like, ugh, groan. One of the things he does, which I've only seen in TV, everybody's a critic. Like, someone says something to you, like, it insults you, and he goes, ah, shucks, everyone's a critic. Like, I've only seen that in cartoons. I have never heard that in real life, but it's so staid and hackneyed. And I was like, Dresden, Harry, just stop, please. Just go solve the crime, man, and be a wizard. Like, you're cool enough. Everyone can't be the funny man. Just accept the fact that you're the cool one and, let the other people be funny. And the other thing is stuff that most people mention when they talk about especially the early books in this series. Everyone's pervy. I don't know why everyone's so pervy. Especially Bob the Skull is like super pervy, and everyone seems super concerned with Harry's dating and sex life. Like, even the supernatural creatures are interested. It's just like, why? Every woman in this book is sexy or attractive. Harry mentions it multiple times. There's just a lot of describing women's bodies and how hot they are and how they look naked and there's just a lot of that going on here. And it's so weird because Harry is like kind of undressing them with his eyes, and yet he continues to be like, well, I'm a gentleman, and so I don't, are you a gentleman? Like, do gentlemen really, ogle all the women they see? Now, despite all this, Harry, he's not creepy. He feels a little juvenile at times and feels kind of confused on what a gentleman is. And I never disliked Harry. Like, when that was happening, I was just like, really, Butcher? Come on, man. Come on. But I never disliked Harry. I never thought he was like a weird, creepy perv, like a predator or anything. You like Harry, despite all of these things that I said. Like, yeah, there's kind of flaws and cliches and things that are contrived, but you root for Harry. What Butcher has done here is he's made a character that is equal parts likable, competent, but also self-deprecating. And so he really does feel like an everyman. Butcher achieves here what you have to achieve in that kind of PI genre. It's the same thing that Pratchett achieves in the same kind of genre that he writes with the City Watch books. Harry feels not quite as principled, but he feels very much like a Sam Vimes without the principles, really. He does have some, but he's not rigidly adhering to them. But he is determined to get to the bottom of it, even if people are trying to stop him from doing the case. So there is this everyman quality that we do root for in Harry, and I really, really did enjoy the time that I spent with Harry. I hear that each successive book gets better. There's some debate of whether Stormfront or Full Moon, the book 2, is the worst book. I don't really know, but I will be continuing with the series. I'm actually kind of hoping to catch up to my buddies Andy and Philip, so maybe we can be buddy reading them. They're on book 3, so I want to get through book 2 so we can kind of maybe be on the same page and talk about Dresden. If you're not following their channels, I will link those down below. Definitely follow their channels. So even though Stormfront wasn't my favorite book, I did enjoy my time in Dresden's Chicago. On the King Finn approval system, I give this a good plus. It's a good plus. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it enough to keep reading. This is why I love book 2, because I have people whose opinions I trust who can tell me, well, it does get better, stick through it. The same thing that I kind of lobby with Greatcoats. If you didn't like Greatcoats 1, stick through at least Greatcoats 2. And on the star system, out of 5 stars, 3 stars. Solid 3-star book. It's fine. It's fine. It's got its flaws, but I really enjoyed reading. I didn't dislike picking it up, and that's really the key. To get below 3 stars, I really just need to dread picking it up and reading it, and I did not do that here. So guys, this is my foray into the Dresden Files. I hope that I can continue reading them and kind of enter in the conversation and see what all the excitement is about. I've heard they get really, really good. And so I am super pumped to continue reading Dresden. Hopefully next month I'll be able to fit in Full Moon. They go really, really quick. Guys, if you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. And if you want to support me further, feel free to join the ranks of the Knights of Alexandria over at Patreon. Or if you don't want to do that, you just want to go talk to us, come over to the Discord. But thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you next time.